You're listening to Radio Primavera Sound, proudly presented by Cupra.
Hello and welcome to Line Noise. Once more, my guest on the show this week is Luke Solomon, who is a don of the UK's house scene and has been for many, many years. He's the co-founder of Classic Recordings. He's a Beyoncé collaborator. He's an excellent A&R man, and he is a brilliant producer in his own right. So we were talking about his new Powerdance album, which is out now, Powerdance 2. So we talked a lot about that. It's an excellent album. Go and check it out. But we also talked about becoming an accidental pop star with The Freaks, who had a top 10 hit, and the artistic dangers that entailed. We talked about how he discovered house music in the first place, his role on an upcoming off-Broadway musical, the explosion of Honey Dijon, and how Beyoncé's Renaissance, on which he worked, changed house music. I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks as ever for listening. And Line Noise comes to you with the support of Cupra.
Cool. No, thank you so much for doing this. It's really nice to speak to you.
Likewise.
I remember we were briefly in touch about there was something I was writing for Disco Pogo about Chicago House and that kind of thing.
Yes. Okay. Right on. I remember now.
Yeah, that was using another email, so I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So thank you very much for helping with.
No.
It's great to speak to
All
you
good.
properly today. I know, like, kind of the reason we're talking is Powerdance and Powerdance 2, which is a fantastic new album. But just before I got into that, I wanted to ask. I mean, maybe this is a very, very long-winded question, but how did you get into house music in the first place?
Okay. It was a combination of things. It was, I think, obviously growing up through the golden age of, I was born in 1970, so 87, 88, I was 17, 18. So it was the perfect combination of all of the things that were going on around that period, the Summer of Love, Second Summer of Love, and growing up in the West Country and the kind of rise of ecstasy and that sort of that part of rave culture, and living in Weston-super-Mare and growing up near Bristol and sort of being a little kind of out of the way of things. We had sort of a lot of influence from London and lots of different places, so we were early adopters of everything, but obviously drugs were part of that early adoption. So I think it was like a combination of all the kind of meetings, the stars aligning, being in the right places at the right time, and going to parties and hearing incredible music from DJs that were playing music that sounded like nothing I'd ever heard before. So I think it was that perfect mix that just made me fall in love with dance music and house music, essentially. Well, dance music probably before house music.
Well, I was going to say, because a lot of people who grew up in rave, some went on to techno, some went on to jungle, some went on to hardcore, all kinds of things. Why do you think it was house for you?
I don't know. I mean, I think I just had this resonance with Chicago from a really early age. I don't know that when I was listening to the records I was listening to, I didn't know that they were from Chicago, but there was something about that Chicago sound that felt good to me. I mean, maybe it was because it was a little off kilter and a little kind of left of center and not normal sounding, and I think those were the things that, I mean, obviously there was Detroit stuff as well, but from very early on, when you're kind of hearing Frankie Knuckles for the first time, and then what would be kind of considered to be sort of Balearic / house crossover. So you had things like The Beloved and Man Called Adam and Adamski, and there was this kind of like mixture or combination that was a certain sound that I don't know, it just resonated with me. So I kind of gravitated towards that, and that led me to my kind of links with Chicago. I mean, I wish I could give you a more, it's a spiritual thing, man. That's what it was. It was calling me. I don't know what it was, but it was just different, and that's why I loved it and still do.
I also sort of, staying in the past a bit, I also wanted to ask about Space, which was a legendary London
Sure.
that you ran in the 90s that I never went to. I was just too young to go to, I think, but I always kind of like the sound of, like, what was it like?
It was, I think Penny Hawks and myself were trying to fill a hole that was not around at the time in London, and that was the music that we were playing on Girls FM, pirate radio station that we were on. There was stuff that we were buying from various different places, but from specific record shops that was sort of, I guess, would be considered the original sort of versions of deep house, and there was nowhere really in London that played the music we wanted to hear, and there was no one really booking the DJs we wanted to hear. So one thing led to another, and that was the establishing of the Wednesday night that sort of went on to become legendary. But it was a pretty special place. It was, you know, to have something like that on a Wednesday. We had this thing called the Deep House 150, which was the hardcore, like 150. Whatever happened, there would be 150 people that would turn up at the club. And then beyond that, depending on who was playing, if it was Derek or Harvey or a big established name that, or someone that had been established from the club, then it would be a roadblock. But it was a special place. It was hedonistic, but not extreme. It was people that just came down and all wanted to hear this music that they weren't really hearing anywhere else. So yeah, again, it was a good concoction. Soho at that time was kind of before East London had its moment. A lot of people were going out in Soho. Midweek clubs were a thing. You had stuff going on Wednesday. You had Carl Cox on Thursday. You know, Barumba had stuff, Giles on Mondays, and yeah. So there was a whole different cultural thing happening back then. So Wednesday was the hot night for house music, and your Paul Trouble Anderson was doing his garage thing on a Wednesday as well. So I think it was just a moment in time that was just fantastic.
I wanted to ask actually about the sort of deep house label, because I've sometimes thought, like, in the music I listen to, I don't quite know what to call it, because like let's say a lot of the music that's released on Classic, your record label.
Sure.
Like, I wouldn't, like, I don't know what to call it. Like, I don't know if I'd necessarily call it like deep house or Chicago house or something.
I mean, the original, the concept of deep house was not the fact that it sounded deep. It was that it was coming from an emotionally deep place. So there was you could take it right the way back, obviously, to Mr. Fingers and stuff like that. But even the idea of deep house in music that Derek was playing at the time, which wasn't deep sounding house, it was what became Bumpty House or Chicago House or whatever, was still at that time kind of labeled as deep house. You know, it was weird. It wasn't like there was this sort of multi-genre, we need the nuances of this because there's 50 different versions of house music now. Deep house was really the idea of this emotional thing that was not mainstream or not commercial, and that's how it got categorized. But it wasn't really the fact that because it had chords in it or it was deep sounding, or there were a number of things that would be considered deep house.
Would you call Powerdance deep house?
No, that's I don't know what that is. That's like mutant disco, I guess.
Would I be right in saying Powerdance is a collective? Is that the right word?
Yeah, it is. It's something that I created because I always have this feeling of making music that I want to make that I'm not hearing and that I'd like to play out, and I guess that's how it sort of it's whoever's around at the time that wants to kind of jump on the bus and make that with me. So first album was a slightly different version with Al from Hot Chip and Nick Maurer and Sean J. Wright and a few other people. And this time round, it was like a different group of people, but that's just creatively how I was feeling in that moment.
But it's always you who has the final word, I assume.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned that last time around, it was with the various people. This time, and to quote from the press release, the cast list is shrouded in mystery. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of cameos on there, but I can't talk about that.
Okay. I won't ask who, but just how the most famous person on it. How famous are they?
They're pretty famous.
Okay.
Yeah, in dance music world, and maybe beyond that too.
Good. I mean, one of my favorite songs on it is the closing song, "Power Love."
Okay.
Because it's really different. There's almost like a new Jack Swing thing to it going on. Was that what you were looking for? Or?
No, that was a kind of like ode to Wally Badarou and that kind of sort of weird mid-tempo Compass Point stuff. And it was actually originally a vocal song, and then I ended up stripping the vocal off of it and just putting it out as an instrumental. But it wasn't on the vinyl; it's only on the digital, and it was a last minute, like, shall I put it on there, shan't I? And then I kind of just went with it in its instrumental form.
No, I really like it. And yeah, I guess it kind of really made my ears pick up because it is that different, you know.
Yeah, it's always those things that I feel like I'm kind of inspired by, but predominantly sort of Grace Jones, Compass Point, Wally Badarou, Arthur Russell, stuff like that.
How does it work in the studio? Is it like it sounds like you had a lot of fun making it.
Yeah, I mean, that's always number one priority. So yeah, we did it in various different places at different times. A lot of the drumming, percussion, live stuff was done as overdubs. It's rare that we sort of all get in a room at the same time. I've always kind of worked remotely, which is a shame. I think I sort of got ideas for number 3, and I'm sort of working on that moment, but I want to do that as more of a live like band in a room situation. But yeah, in this instance it's all kind of remote, but it's still, I want it to feel like it's purely for me. I'm not, there's no aspirations to make anything. If people like it, then cool, but it's really my kind of personal, away from Luke the producer and Luke the Honey musical director and all of those things. Like I just, this is a very personal project that I just kind of want to enjoy and put records out and see how it's if it's received in a good way, then great, but it's just itches that I have to scratch.
Well, you get my vote. I enjoy it a lot.
Thank you, man.
Sorry, I should have researched this earlier, but you talked about playing live. Do you actually play instruments?
No.
Okay, so what would your role be? Would you be sort of the person in the middle being like, more bass?
No, I program. I mean, I can program. Yeah. I can program drums, like all the drums that I did, like all the drums on Beyoncé record, all the drums on Honey's records, all those stuff. That's me programming. That's something that I can do. So I guess that's an instrument. I can play a drum machine, and I'm good at it. But I can manipulate samples and make things sound like I want them to sound, then give them to Chris, who will then interpret them as musical ideas. But I know ultimately, I know what my taste is and I know what I like. So if I sit in a room with musicians, whether that's a percussionist or whether that's a trumpet player or whether that's a keyboard player, and whether it's a bass player, I know how I want the bass to sound. I know how I want the bass to be played. I know how I want the piano to sound. I know how the piano I want to be played. So I can conduct that room to make sure that all of those things fall in line with my vision of what the end result is. So I guess, whatever that, that's essentially a producer's role. And I have melodies and things in my head that I can kind of translate to people, and then working with incredible people that are able to read the inside of my mind and do that, i.e. Chris Penny, then and then they have their interpretations of that and their ideas and like, wow, okay, I like that, but let's try this, and then let's expand on that, and let's write in key changes and do all of those things. But everything that I do is remedial in relation to, I don't know music theory, I don't know any of those things. I just know what I like, and I know how I like it to sound. So
if this is a bit of a basic question, but like, how do you make your drums? Do you always like start with the bass drum, or do you have like a way of doing it? Like, how do you make them, and how do you make them swing?
I can't give away those secrets. I have a process. I have a huge sample library which I build, and that's just sampling and sounds, and I've just built that over years and years. And then essentially I use something called Machine, Native Instruments, and then I load my samples into that. But then I use other drum machines. Like at the moment, I'm using this thing called a Percons, which is like a crazy drum machine. I'm using a lot of modular stuff, so I add textures and layers. But the swing is like, I don't rely on the machines to provide that. Like I just do that by ear. I just know how I like drums to swing, so I just do it. I just program it. But I mean, it's interesting because Chris Penny he plays multiple instruments, but his actual instrument is the drums, and he always relies on me to do the drum programming, which is always very flattering.
Yeah. And who, aside from yourself, who has the best drums in house music?
Oh, that's a good one. Historically, I would have to say there's probably top 5. I would have to go with number 1, and this is the battle for number 1. I would say Derek Carter, Penny Dope, number 2. Then I would probably go with Seven Davis Jr., number 3.
Oh, nice.
Because he just has a thing which I have asked him about and grilled him about, and still have no idea how he does it, but he does. Matthew Herbert would have always been up there for me. And I'm trying to think, Moody Man always does something that with it. I wouldn't say that he's an incredible drum programmer, but he just has a thing he does with drums, which I love, the sound of them, the sonics of them, not so much the way they're played, but really how they sound.
Yeah.
But Derek's always when you hear, it's like listening to James Brown. Like if you listen, you can hear what someone sound like, who they are the minute you hear the drums. Like Masters at Work were always a great example of that. Like I could tell you it was a Masters at Work record from the minute I heard the drum swings and stuff, and that's such an incredible talent. It's like, wow, your identity is based in this rhythm section that you've created yourself, and I'm a big fan of that.
You mentioned working with Honey Dijon. You are did you say the musical director?
I'm her MD, yeah.
Okay, so what does that entail? Like you
a lot of stuff. So at the moment we are working on Halle Orchestra. So we're doing like interpretations of all of her music. This is just example of my day-to-day stuff. But it's a combination of her music and third-party music. And then I'm working with a guy called Tommy Evans, who is also an MD. He did the Nightmares on Wax live shows and stuff. So he's like an interpreter for me, a musical genius that basically I can feed. This is what I want to happen. This is how I want it to be done. This is how I'd like it to sound. This is what we're going to do. And then he kind of interprets that. And so with the Halle Orchestra, it's a full massive orchestra, and we're kind of working and doing all of these things as one piece of music, which is like going to be a kind of artistic interpretation with Honey doing narrations. And that's in May. So I'm working on that. We're doing a choir in Amsterdam for ADE, which is again working with a whole huge multi-voice choir, of which then I will give the songs and the set list to, and work on all the interpretations and help and work with the choir really closely to make sure that that sounds like we want it to sound. Royal Festival Hall, which we did a couple of years ago, that was all me kind of working closely again with Tommy. So it's multiple variations of different things. With Honey's new album, I'm a producer, but I'm also like, I work in help creating the album and getting all the people on board and all of those different things. So it has many things, and there's a lot of things I do, and it probably takes up the majority of my time. Apart from, like, at the moment, I'm working on an off-Broadway musical, so that's which Honey's name's attached to, and that's a whole different version of what I just explained to you.
So I did not know about the Halle Orchestra. So I just looked it up. Thursday, May the 22nd, Bridge.
Yes.
Manchester. Presents Honey Dijon. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty epic. It's 70 minutes. There's lots of surprises. We wanted to do something that was more like a kind of Philip Glass, like artistic, not like, here's a load of dance music standards and with the greatest respect, it's like we didn't want to do the kind of Pete Tong thing and all of that stuff. It wasn't like you're coming to hear loads of records that you love. You're going to come and hear records that you are not expecting to hear with the orchestra, and also lots of stuff from Honey's new album. But the whole thing is essentially Honey's, it's a journey through her life where she's doing narrations through it with the orchestra back to it. It's a very kind of personal story and journey. So it's going to be pretty epic, actually.
I was wondering, because you've worked with Honey Dijon for ages, what's it been like seeing her blow up like this?
It's amazing. I mean, we've known each other for 20 plus years. Since we were young, and so I've been part of that journey historically, and yeah, it's incredible. I mean, just beyond the fact that she's my friend and I'm happy for her, to see a black trans woman just have this kind of stage is incredible. It's so inspiring, and it's sort of paving the way for a whole new world, especially with the way that the world is at the moment. I think there's so many reasons why it's amazing.
Do I get the impression that you quite like being in the background in that kind of...
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. Don't get me wrong, it can be tough sometimes. I think when you have to battle your own ego, I think everyone that would be in situations that were involved in the level of things that I was a part of, that so every now and again, I guess when your defense is in down and stuff is sort of, you're just having one of those days, it can be a little tough sometimes, where you're just like, oh, you put my hand up from the back of the class, like, I did that, I was part of that, but I've reached a point in my career where I am not constantly searching for those that kind of recognition. Like, I feel happy and accomplished in what I've achieved, at the very, to say that I've worked on Beyoncé is probably the highest level of anything that you could dream of as a producer. And then beyond that, to then get to do all of these different things, like working with the Halle Orchestra, working on a musical on Broadway, working on all these different things, I'm like quietly comfortable with all of those things. It's okay. Like, I'm cool with it now. That's the long answer.
With all that in mind, what was it like having a number 9 UK chart hit with Creeps in 2007?
That was interesting. That feels like a whole lifetime ago. And I often forget that that's like another thing that I was part of, which is kind of amazing. But that was an interesting one for me, because that, and I've said this before, so it's quite public knowledge, but it made me realize that I didn't want to be a pop star. I didn't like the pressure of trying to make hit records, which is kind of what we tried to do afterwards. And then I soon realized that actually, when you're creative and artistic, the minute that you start chasing, you lose sight of what you stand for. And when I realized that, I just went back to my roots. Then I guess that's really when everything started to, after a kind of massive drop, everything started to come back my way because I was being true to myself a little bit more. So it was an interesting learning curve. It was a really interesting learning curve, but it made me realize that I had no desire to really want to further that chase. You know, it's not for me.
Because I think I read somewhere that you tried to make another follow-up sort of in that style.
Yeah, we tried to do a lot of things in that style, and I think it was the undoing of what we had, which is a real shame. I mean, Justin's still, you know, a good friend and freaks the legacy of what we created, all the things I'm really proud of. But our focus just changed, and I think that I was a lot younger, and I think that the idea of like, oh, you know, hits, this is money, and this is great, we can just do it, and that was easy, we can do this again, and we can do this again. And actually everything that Freak stood for was kind of the opposite of that. We were like, Justin and I, it was me and him against the world, and we were going to do everything that was different. We were going to like make records that sounded nothing like Basement Jaxx, and we were going to make records that sounded nothing like, you know, and historically the legacy of the music that we followed that path with, you know, Ricardo Villalobos plays our music all the time, like every time he DJs, and has historically done that, and that was the world that we existed in. And I think, you know, in hindsight, probably if we had stayed in that world and been weirder and more avant-garde and kind of followed this kind of Grateful Dead mission that we were on, our path probably would have been different. But, you know, you live and learn. That just doesn't always go the way that life is supposed, you know, that you planned it. And that's just what happens.
I mean, was it quite weird that suddenly it was the remix, wasn't it? I think that.
Yeah, so it kind of just happened. It was out of our hands. So it just sort of happened, and it was the rise of digital music, and it sort of exploded, and then this remix was done, and then it got traction, and then sort of our hand was forced in a lot of ways, and we just went with it. And then you kind of soon realize that there's all these people all sat around a table with their ideas of what hits are and how they work and what they should do. And then you get the pressure from everyone, oh, you should, you know, why don't you do it again? And that's, this doesn't work like that. Some people have a natural talent, you know. Calvin Harris is that guy. Like, I am not that guy.
Going back to the present, you mentioned you're the musical director of, and did you say off-Broadway musical? Saturday.
A musical supervisor.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that like a house musical? Or?
That would maybe do it a little bit of a disservice. It's a musical called Saturday Church that is bedded in the roots of queer culture, and along with the queer culture is obviously the roots of dance music, and not just house music, but also all manner of dance music that is kind of comes from in and around the culture. So there's gospel, there's soul, disco, there's house, there's various more experimental things and stuff like that going on in it. But the story is about something that is a parallel to the path of discovery, where the main character is basically comes out to family and gets basically gets kind of isolated and goes out in search for their people and finds those people in amongst the trans community, and the trans community then introduce that person to ballroom and voguing, and that becomes the church, like their church. So it basically moves between the idea of church and Saturday church being, you know, our church, which is going to clubs and going out and finding another way to escape and find your people.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, I will say it's fucking epic, and it's the team that are involved and all the people that are part of it. The person that I'm musical supervisor with, Jason Michael Webb, who did Michael Jackson the musical, and Whitney White, who's the director, who's incredible. Like the whole team are just, Sia has written all the songs, and we've reinterpreted those. Yeah, it's amazing. The choreography is amazing. So it opens 15th of September. So I move out into New York in the middle of July to start rehearsals.
Oh wow, are you looking forward to it?
Cannot wait. It's one of the best things I've ever been involved in.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about Classic as well, if I may. And
Sure.
the label. It's one of my very favourite labels.
Oh, nice.
Did you know? I literally, I've got to mention it because I don't know if we're going to be mentioning it again. But like the Jacob London 12-inch.
Oh wow! Now we're going back.
We love that record.
It's amazing how everyone has a different favourite, and it just blows my mind. It's so good. Casual Bingo, is that the Casual Bingo EP? Is that the one, or was it a different one? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, because I was trying to actually think of my favourite classic, and I was thinking of A Lovely Day, maybe, or You Can't Hide From Your Bud, and then I read one, and I was like, oh yeah, that's amazing. And okay, this is maybe unfair. Do you have like a favourite or something? No, I'm not saying the best, but like, you know, a favourite that stands out for whatever reason, or
yeah, I mean, the ones that I kind of resonate with on a personal level are more not because you know, it's like having one of your kids being your favorite. It's a tricky one, but because of the fact that we're sort of 30 years in, and I get to look back at it in a nostalgic way and have memories attached to things. And they feel different over time, and that moves and changes and mutates. And obviously I could say to you that, you know, all of those records you mentioned, I love, you know, passionately, and You Can't Hide was a game changer for us. Every single one has a great story attached to it. Lovely Day was, you know, again, has a special emotion attached to it. And especially because of the links with Playhouse and my friend Heiko, who is no longer with us. And so that has a really amazing emotion attached to it. Excuse me one sec. But for some reason in my head, the one that's sort of sticking with me at the moment, and I've been going back through a lot of things to play things again and just, you know, seeing how they resonate with me. But Derek had a guys called a Nero, and there was a track called Shush, which was him reciting poetry in a real kind of like, he had this voice changer thing that he bought, and he raid like, I remember him sending me a DAT with 5 tracks on, and there was that, Friends, Bumpty Bump theme song, Where You At, and it was literally, I think, one of the greatest musical moments I've ever experienced, where I got this, like, Derek was on a run and he just made this, and I was the first person to hear any of these songs outside of him, and I just remember being absolutely floored by them. They were like nothing I'd heard, and all of those songs sort of grouped together, and I've still got the CD and the DAT with where they're all on. But that was one of them, a Nero Say Shush, and it's still pretty special. So much so that actually Honey's going to do the poem as part of the Halle as well. So yeah, for now, today, might be different tomorrow. That's my favourite.
What does a record need to be on Classic? Is there like something that makes it? Because, you know, you must get sent loads of really good music all the time, and probably lots of really good unsigned music. What's the one thing that would make you be like, okay, I want to put this out?
That's an interesting question. it's more than just someone sending me a demo and me hearing it and going, oh, that's cool, we should put it out. There usually has to be a story attached to it as well. And I usually have to resonate with the person or people that have made the music. And I think that stands true for the full history of the label from very early on. Like Derek and me, even if Derek loved it more than me, we both needed to be in agreement. And if I liked it more, and if there was any one time when one of us was like, no, this isn't happening, which I think only happened once, well, maybe twice, we would usually be in agreement and sort of, and be loyal to each other's choices. And then once Derek left and I carried on doing the things on my own, I think I kind of had honed my A&R skills more to just having a greater idea of what I wanted the label to feel like and sound like and all of those things. So a lot of the time it had to be music that really just grabbed me, either sonically or in its concept, or just really resonated and made me think, fuck yeah, that's a hot record, we need to put that out. And I'd say hand on heart, every single choice that we've made musically for every record that we've ever put out, there isn't one moment where I could just say, oh God, what were we thinking? You know, there isn't one of those moments.
Do you have like a go-to record at the end of the day when you've been listening to sort of demos all day or new things all day and you don't know what's up and what's down anymore? You just one record you put on that's just like, okay, you know, to kind of almost cleanse your ears in a way.
Yeah, there is. I mean, I have to say it's like Go Bang, probably. I think that's my like go-to for everything that I've ever been a part of or done, or it's the one record that still, you know, Francois, like Dinosaur, L, Go Bang, Francois Kevorkian, like there's just so many things about that and Arthur Russell and about that record culturally, sonically, creatively. Like it's the thing, it's like the blueprint of like music for me, like what my taste is, what it says to me, like all of those things. It's like full caution to the wind, no rhyme or reason, just this piece of music that just came from outer space that's just like, oh my God, this is incredible. And it makes me, if I'm losing sight of things or make me think about things, I maybe not just that record, but going back to people like Arthur Russell and those kind of producers that really were so true to themselves in the ideas and concepts, and they were just doing art. You know, it was art for the sake of art and not trying to follow any. But I have this conversation with my boys because both of them are creatives and they're both into music. Harley's making music and Marlon's and videos and fashion and all those things. And we had a big debate about it. And I said, look, you know, you've got, for me, like always, creativity is about doing something that you're doing for yourself. And if people decide that they're going to like it, then that's a bonus. You know, the minute you start to pander to other people's ideas and just like, if I go, I want to start making classic sound like another record label because that's what's cool at the moment, it would be fucked. Do you know what I mean? It would have fallen off 20 years ago. We would have just been like, okay, like for me, it's always about pushing forward and moving and mutating and changing. And that's my manifesto and mine and Honey's manifesto with the music that we make together and those things. It's like, how do we push the boundaries? How do we make this genre that we love feel different, sound different, and still be creative? And that a lot of the time is working with people that are coming in and in the same kind of wavelengths. But yeah, but going back to your original question, Go Bang is probably my go-to.
I mean, would you say there's a bit of Arthur Russell to the Powerdance album?
But yeah, for sure. Of course there is, 100%.
I mean, how How does that come through? And one thing I really like about Powerdance is it does sound like quite timeless. Again, is that like,
thank you.
Is that conscious, or is it just kind of what comes?
No, I genuinely, like, I'm trying to make something that I've not explored before. And if that happens to sound like nothing else around, it's really interesting. I have these like psychological battles in myself of like, I made this record, and then you think about, okay, well, who am I going to give this record to that may play it, like which DJ or one of those things? And no matter how much you think of those things, you think, okay, well, so-and-so may play it, or so-and-so may play it, or some. It's always the people you least expect that suddenly like, oh, so-and-so played your Powerdance record. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, I've never expected that in a million years. And I think it's like, the more I question where this record fits, probably the better it is. Because I have to constantly I have to battle my own demons. Is this any good? Do I like it? Oh, I go fall in and out of love. Oh God, what is it? Is anyone going to like it? Do I care? Should I worry about those things? It's that constant, like, Luke the artist that questions these things. But if I actually sit back and go, am I proud of this? Does it feel like the record that I wanted to make? Yes, then that's really all should matter. Nothing else matters.
Do you still have those kind of doubts after 30?
Oh God, yeah. Far more than I've ever done. I think that comes with age.
I'd have thought, don't they say confidence comes with age?
No.
Okay.
Who said that? Let me speak to them.
Yeah, that was the guy first said that.
No, imposter syndrome is the worst, man. I'm like, I'm learning to not overthink things. And actually, being a producer of other people's music makes that a lot easier to deal with. But when it's my own music, I will overthink for sure. And then I have to tell myself off and go like, look, just make the fucking record, you know? And it's interesting. Like at the moment, I'm working on an album with Andrew Hale from Sade, and we've got this whole thing where we've made 8 or 9 tracks now, and we have no idea what it is. But we know that we fucking love it, and we're going to put it out next year. And what anyone thinks doesn't really matter, because ultimately, like, we have this incredible relationship with each other, and we just are on this kind of weird wavelength where there's things that we resonate with each other, and we go, okay, let's make a record that, you know, stimulates the idea, that seems like it's something like it feels like that, and just be really experimental. And then our kind of tastes start to join together, and you'll get these elements of these kind of amazing Sade chords, and then, you know, my kind of wonkiness and weirdness. And that's the most kind of freeing and liberating thing, where I won't even question it for one reason. But maybe that's collaboration. That helps. Collaboration helps a lot, because you're bouncing off of people.
Do you have a way of, like, not overthinking things in the studio? Like, I remember, as a friend of mine, no one who made any well-known music, but he was used to put on the TV when he was making music, because he was always like, if not, it kind of like distracts me just enough, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
No, I'm pretty good at recognizing a good idea quite quickly. So that allows me to shut things down pretty quickly if they're not working. And I think you learn to recognize something almost like, I need to progress that. I may not progress it now, I may not progress it in 3 weeks' time, I may not progress it in a year's time, but it's going to stay there, and I'll never forget that it's there, because it's too good to ignore. And I know that. When I know that something's just like, oh, I'm going to go in the studio and switch the computer on and see what happens, that doesn't work for me. Like, I just can't work like that. Right. I have to have something. I have to have just one little thing that allows me to stimulate the idea, or something to start a starting point, and then that stops me from overthinking and start questioning it. there are things like there's one song on Honey's new album where we're all in this kind of like we're in overthinking, like it's like demo-itis thing. The original's fucking great and we've overthought it and now we're trying to backpedal and it's become this thing, this thorn, which is too good to let go of, and that can be frustrating. But I think you always get there in the end. You just got to trust the process.
I have to ask, what was it like working with Beyoncé?
I mean, I wouldn't really know because it was COVID and we couldn't do anything or go anywhere or see anything. So it was the process was send the music, wait for information, smoke signals. Smoke signals would come back. She's dancing around the kitchen. She loves this. Can you do this? And then we do that, and then we send it back, and then it would be that, and then there would be silence, and then it would be we've got something we want to play you. We're flying someone out to play it to you on a computer, and that's how you get to listen to it. That was the process. But she's not the person that sits in a room with multiple people. She does her things in isolation with Stuart, her mix engineer, and then you get the end result. But whatever works for her, I'm cool with it.
But I find that remarkable because Renaissance has such a lot of life to it. It sounds
very collaborative.
Yeah, and a lot of things are made that way, and a lot of great records are made that way. But I guess it slightly surprised me that.
Yeah, I mean, she did it. I mean, it's kind of amazing. What I always expected to happen was that the versions we sent or the stems that we sent, like everything that we got back, what we would hear in the end would be a mutated, completely different take on what we had made. And we were okay with that. It was like, okay, maybe she's just going to sample one of the drums or the bass line. But actually, Alien Superstar, both Alien Superstar and Cozy were the records we made, a bar, the chorus in Alien Superstar, where they built some extra the change in it was built out and stuff, but everything else for the most part was what we sent, which was kind of flattering. It was actually amazing.
Do you think Renaissance changed things in house music? I mean, we've got the
definitely.
biggest. Yeah. How do you think it did? Like, what was the impact?
I think it was a turning point for a lot of people, but I think probably more in America actually than in the UK or anywhere outside of the UK. I think America has been waiting to have its house music moment for years. It didn't have its house music moment back in the day. It was very underground. Like when we're talking where it's kind of crossing over to the masses, like it was never something that you heard on the radio. It was never something that, unless you it's a big old place, you could go to the right clubs and hear all kinds of fucking great DJs, but it never really infiltrated the mainstream. It was like best kept secret, And then I think there are a number of things, but Renaissance was a tipping point, I think, where now sort of dance music culture in America is huge, bigger than it's ever been. And I think Renaissance played a really big part in that, for sure. And then obviously, let's not forget what it did for queer culture and queer dance music and stuff. I think that was that laid a big platform out for a lot of people, which is, the results of that have been pretty amazing, People will probably tell that story completely differently, but that's what happens when things become successful. And I know that, and I've learned that,
I mean, did you ever feel kind of strange that, as a British person going out and kind of like helping to spread house music back in, do you know what I mean? Like, because obviously, it comes from America, it comes from like Chicago, it comes from New York.
I mean, again, let's, going back to imposter syndrome. Yeah, I am often questioning the fact that I'm sat in a room with all of these people going, how the fuck did that happen? Here's the straight white guy from, Western Supermare that gets to be around all of these things and these people and this culture and all of this incredible stuff. And I constantly have to look in and go, okay, well, I've earned a right to be here and I've done the things and it's okay and that's accepted and I'm an ally and I'm all of these things. And but I never let that pass me by. It's remarkable that my journey has taken me kind of from Western to Bristol to London to Chicago, back to London and all of these places, and now to have a platform that I've never had before. So yeah, I fuck knows how that happened. I have no idea.
One final question, because I reckon you might be the best people to answer this. Where do you think is the best place these days to go and dance or listen to house music?
At the moment, for me, New York.
All right.
Yeah, hands down. That's where I've gravitated to. I think I'm struggling with the UK at the moment. There's some cool things around, but I grew up during a golden age and I was very spoiled. And so obviously I'm always looking back at what that was, and now looking at where we're at now post-COVID and what's happened and how the club life has been decimated and all those things. And that makes me feel very sad. And I don't ever want to feel like I'm disowning because obviously there's good shit out there, but it's been forced very much back underground and things have changed considerably. But for me to go and feel stimulated, culturally stimulated on a kind of daily level, I really am only at the moment getting that from America and predominantly New York. And that's me talking on a very personal level about what's resonating with me. But I love the fact that New York, that you've got, my dear friend Eli Escobar has his own club he plays every Thursday. Gabriella, it's like 200 people. Then you could go to Knockdown and see Horse Meat do 3,000 or Honey doing 3,000 people. And then you can go and hear like crazy techno at a different place, or you can go on a Monday night, or you could see Natasha Diggs doing her Soul in the Horn thing, or it's just a melting pot and it's fucking awesome, man. I love it.
Well, look, you've been very generous with your time and thank you so much for...
No problem.
Powerdance 2 is out now, came out March 28th.
It's out. Yeah, it's out.
Anything else in the off? Well, loads of things in the off.
Loads of things. But the immediate near future, Honey's new music coming very soon, new music coming from that very soon, and then working on some other things cooking up, and then my album with Andrew Hale will be next year. So yeah, lots of stuff happening.
And the big Jacob London reissue campaign coming.
That's amazing. I love it. I love the artwork for that record. It's so good.
Oh yeah, one of the what are they called? Those
Banana splits.
Oh yeah. Well, it was a pleasure to speak to you.
Likewise.
Thanks for taking the time, and I hope your flew entirely.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Take it easy.
Bye.
See ya.
You're listening to Radio Primavera Sound, proudly presented by Cupra.